in Luxembourg, a little suburb of Luxembourg City. As you can see, beautiful weather out here. Contrary to the races in Switzerland, we have wonderful weather here. About 12 degrees Celsius, hardly any wind, but a very challenging course here for the first stage, the prologue of the Ceratizit Festival Elsy Jacobs. It's a very short prologue, 2.2 kilometers, but a challenging one. My name is José Bain. Sitting with me, next to me today is Owen Rogers. And these are some nice little images from Luxembourg, the beautiful city of Luxembourg. Of course, the capital of the country bearing the same name, one of the smallest countries in Europe, but a very important one. The European Court of Justice is located here in Luxembourg City. And it was also one of the founding members of the European Union. So a very Euro-centered country. Most of the people here love being part of the European Union. Also because there's a lot of workers from Germany, from France, from Belgium coming in. This is the program for this 3-day stage race, and we start with this prologue. Like I said, it's a very short one, 2.2 kilometers only, and a very, very steep hill. And well, I've walked it, and I can tell you, it's a pretty steep hill. It's comparable to the Mur de Huy. It's about 13-14%. You come out of a corner and then straight up to that hill. So that's going to ask something of the legs today. Beautiful town, Luxembourg, very modern town. The standard of living here is pretty high, but we're here, of course, to watch the bike racing. And this is Trixie Vorak. And this is a rider from Drops-the-Col, Séverie Hérault, the rider from Drops-the-Col on the course here with her 2.2 kilometers. My name is José Bain. Sitting next to me is Owen Rogers. And Owen, what kind of course are we watching today?
Well, it might be short, only 2.2 kilometers, but it is quite a tough test. The prologue has been around here before for the Festival Elsy Jacobs, but it has to be said that perhaps this is the toughest of the prologues in the suburb of Sissange. We start with about a 200-meter flat, and then you turn left with very little momentum, straight up 14%. And as you say, we've walked up it, and it's not particularly easy to walk up. So it's a tough course.
Of course, we have had some riders already. Start here was at 5:30 local time. Fastest time at the moment by Canadian national champion Lea Kirchmann of Team DSM with 3 minutes 15 and just a few tenths of a second behind her. Former junior world champion Caroline Swinkels of Team Jumbo-Visma. And in third place is Talita de Jong. In fourth place, Anoushka Koster. And in fifth place at the moment, Ruth Winder. That is the top 5 of the moment here in this prologue. And Owen, if we look at the past, what kind of winners have we seen in the prologue already?
Well, we've had some interesting winners. If you want to go through all the world's best time trialists, you might perhaps pick out someone like Annemiek van Vleuten.
I know her, yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's actually won here on a longer course. Back in 2016. However, as I say, this is a different course, so it's difficult to compare. But other time trial winners here over the years, or prologue winners, Ashley Moolman-Passio, Lisa Klein from Canyon SRAM, and the prologue of the most recent edition of this race in 2019 was in the race's hometown of Garnisch on a completely different all-uphill course, and that was won by someone else you might have heard of, Demi Vollering.
Oh yeah, that was one of her breakthrough races, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was. Yeah, the week before she'd finished third at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and then 5 days later she won the prologue here. But I personally would say that performance in Liège in 19 was the bigger result, and though not quite as big as last Sunday.
No, last Sunday was absolutely amazing, and of course we've all seen that fantastic SD Works tandem of Anna van der Breggen and Demi Vollering. SD Works are here, just like 7 other World Tour teams, so 8 of the 9 World Tour teams are here at the start of this race, which is a race of the Pro Series category, so that's the category just below the World Tour, and this is the hill that we're talking about. So really, really hard. This is Romy Kasper, as you can see. This is a really hard hill. You can take your momentum out of the corner at the beginning, but then at the end, this is real high watts stuff.
Yeah, and there's not much to recover. Much time to recover, really. This is slightly downhill, but then most of the rest of the course is either flat or uphill, so there's very little opportunity for riders to recover. Though there was in previous editions a downhill and then a steep downhill and then a long slight downhill, like a false flat if you like. But this is a tough course, but I do expect Romy Kasper to go quite well here. She's the kind of rider whose profile fits this race really.
This is the course. It's on well, quite a narrow bike path. But that means that we can close it off because this race, as all other races, is a no spectator race. Everybody on the convoy, on the caravan, press included, has been tested, and both Owen and me were negative, although Owen is of that age that he's already vaccinated.
Thank you, thank you.
Very kind.
A lot of people would say I'm negative in many ways.
Well, I just thought we start with a good thing.
Talking of Romy Kasper, she was actually here in 2008 at the first ever edition of the Festival Elsy Jacobs, the GP Elsy Jacobs.
Yeah, because this race is, well, steadily growing, I should say. If you hear some noise, there's a lot of planes here, AWACS planes, you know, these navigation planes that are used by NATO, and they're really, really, really loud. So if you hear some buzzing on our commentary line, that is most definitely a plane. Everything's closed here for the public, or most of it. Very enthusiastic French fan, even cheering on this German rider, Romy Kasper. And like you said, Owen, she's been around for a while.
And sadly for that French fan, he missed his national champion, Juliette Labousse, who I believe crossed the line in 3:30, was it? Or 3:26?
I will check that for you. I don't have it. I don't have her time. We have it. It's a bit of a challenge here today. We don't have live timing, and we had a power cut as well. But we're just going to bring you whatever there is, and that is the arrival of Romy Kasper, looking very aero. Most of the riders here are on the time trial bikes, showing the professional level of women's cycling as well. And there are these long straights like this part where you can really benefit from riding a time trial bike. But of course, not all of the teams have a time trial bike.
Next arrivé auf dem 96, Richtung 40 als fortgeführt Romy Kasper aus Deutschland, Jumbo Visma. Das ist schon bei Melissa Sabine auf der 10. Platz, der auf der 6. Platz bei der Flotter Prüfe, bei der Nationalmeisterschaften am Euro 70 auf der 4. Platz. Eine gute Zeit von Romy Kasper. 3 Minuten 26.
3:26 for Romy Kasper was her time. A reminder of the top 10 at the moment. Lea Kirchmann leads ahead of Caroline Swinkel, Stalita de Jong, Anoushka Koster, Ruth Winder, Emma Noorskaart, Juliette Labousse, Amber van der Hulst, Elise Chabet, and in 10th place at the moment, Sjane Korevaar. One of the riders of Live Cycling. We can see Lea Kirchmann there waiting in the, well, professional hot seat.
Yeah, that was, I believe, was Sofia Bertizzolo, the Live Racing rider that just crossed the line.
We haven't seen her much this year, have we?
She's been working pretty hard, but not having the opportunities, because I think Soraya Paladin has had a lot of the opportunities when they've not had the sprint races with Lotte Kopecky.
Yeah, true. But of course, last year she was really, really strong as a young rider, almost even a year before. So you kind of hope that she would continue that progression. But, well, of course, these things happen that you have to work for a team captain. The start field here is of a pretty high quality, like I said. It's 8 of the 9 World Tour teams. They had a lot of applications from many teams for the race because, well, stage races are far and few between.
Hij kent Itala, ja, hij is Harry, als Neuseeland 22 Jahre jung, UCI-Ranking 25. Sind wir gespannt, ob die Zeit, dass der Taktsteller vielleicht mal unter 7 am Giro, die 5. Position general gewählt, bei der Zeit von Michaela Harry, 3 Minuten 33, 3 Minuten 33.
Next rider across the line, Michaela Harvey, in a time of 3:33. Harvey, of course, one of the revelations of last year's season, and we're going to see what she's been, what she can do this year. And of course, like Owen, stage races are far and few between, like I said. So there were a lot of applications for this race, but they also have to take into account the costs coming with COVID. We've seen that also with the Thüringer Rundfahrt. They even started a crowdfunding to cover all the costs that come with organising a race in COVID times.
It's certainly a challenge for everyone involved. The costs of all the testing and the security around the course to keep fans away, and also with the race being Pro Series this year, there are greater requirements on security on the road as well. So this is a big step up from this race organisation.
We are in Cessange, or like it's said in Letzeburg's Sissing, and that's also the town where the organisers of this race are located. Very dedicated organisers, a small organisation, as the next rider across the line is already here. It's not Loretta Hansen, but it looks like Loretta Hansen.
Amelia Didriksen, could it be?
I think it's the start of Loretta Hansen.
Yeah.
Next rider across the line from a team DSM is Vilma Olausson, the young Swedish rider who was a very good junior rider and is also one of those riders struggling to make that step up. Olausson with a time of 3:38.
The DSM have got an extraordinarily strong team here this week. It's remarkable. I think they've probably got 4 women that could win the GC in Leah Kirschman, Juliette Labousse. You also have Corinne Rivera, whilst she started her season quite late. And also Lorena Ibis, who we know is one of the best sprinters in the peloton. And so it'll be interesting to see how DSM approach the race and whether or not they anoint whoever has the best time tonight as their leader for the rest of the stages.
Next rider of the Andy Schleck team. Oh, this is actually SD Works. Well, I made the mistake that I was just about to explain. These jerseys are practically similar. You will see a little bit later. This is Elena Cecchini. My start list says Amy Cecchini, but the start list is a bit weird.
Mine says Elena Cecchini, so...
Oh, that's interesting. But Elena Cecchini, of course, former multiple national champion of Italy. And you can see this takes some skill. And of course, you don't want to lose too much speed in that corner. But just like you said, Owen, it's a stop and go kind of prologue. It's corners, it's that hill. So it takes a lot of work. This is Guarischi, the Italian rider, crossing the line there.
And a good prologue rider, Guarischi, in my experience. She's just crossed the line in 3:20.53.
That will take her to the top 10 at the moment. Everything, of course, being very close together if you have a very short prologue like we have here today. Moving a lot on the saddle is Elena Cecchini. She's a very working rider, as you call it. She's not that still on a time trial bike as some of the specialists are.
Of course, Cecchini was part of the final team time trial winning team back in 2018 when Canyon SRAM, she was riding with Canyon SRAM then, and won the last edition of the World Championships team time trial.
Oh, that was the time trial with the amazing wheels.
Yes, yeah, the coloured wheels, yeah.
Yeah, of course, pretty wheels. Coming into the finish, one of the best domestiques of the season, Loretta Hansen. She was absolutely vital in bringing Ellen van Dijk to the win in the Healthy Aging Tour. And she has been riding, well, a lot of races this year. She's been the workhorse of the team, Loretta Hansen, the amicable Australian rider for Trek Segafredo. 3:27 for her.
In 20th place.
She's been riding a lot, Loretta Hansen.
Yeah.
She's one of those riders that you can just call and she'll show up with a smile.
This looks like a really good time for Cecchini because she's going to take the right-hand turn here, and then she's, as you can see, she's got 300 metres left to go. She's going to have to motor some to get there, but you can just see the start line there ahead of her. Onto the skis there, just to get as aero as she possibly can as she's coming into the final 100 metres, and we'll see what time she can manage to clock.
It looks like a very, very good time trial by Elena Cecchini, but of course the differences on this very short course will be very small. At the moment, the difference between number 1 and number 2 is only a few tenths of a second. Elena Cecchini, 3:24.
Puts her down in 15th place. To be fair, prologues are very different from your average time trial. They're much more explosive, and you often see sprinters going really well in this kind of effort. They're short and they're very, very, very hard, as opposed to your more traditional time trials, which are much longer and require a different kind of physical approach. Though I think we saw in the Tour de Romandie prologue the other day that they were pure time trialists that finished first, second and third.
Well, we have to wait quite a while for the next rider to cross the finish line, meaning that she will lose some time with regards to Cecchini. It's the rider with number 1, Asensio, Laura Asensio, a French rider, and her time is, well, we have live timing. That is fantastic. 3:33, 3:34, approximately. And here we have the confirmation, 3:34.
Lizzie Bennett, another decent British rider on Drops Le Col, and I think Drops Le Col have, I always think it's slightly insulting to say punched above their weight this year, but they've had a fantastic season. They've been really aggressive in a lot of races, and they've either worked for Marjolein van 't Geloof.
Yeah.
How was that pronunciation?
Yeah,
was
that's
that okay?
pretty good, pretty good.
Or Joss Loudon, who is an outstanding British rider, an older woman who's come to the sport slightly later in life. Used to be a runner, couldn't make her mind up between being a runner and a cyclist, and has finally plumped for cycling, and she's doing really, really, really well.
As you can see here with Lizzie Bennett, that it is, of course, slightly uphill here as well, so you never really get that rhythm. This is one of the riders from the World Cycling Centre. Of course, always very interesting to have their riders. This is a rider from Morocco, Fatima El Hayani. And of course, the World Cycling Centre has been important for many riders getting to the highest level. One of the most prominent riders, of course, being Tennille Campbell.
3:51. And Tennille Campbell is possibly the best example of a product of the World Cycling Centre. You can see the Drops rider here, Lizzie Bennett, is actually on a road bike here.
Yeah, well, that will be a huge disadvantage, of course, compared to the others. The riders from the World Cycling Centre were on road bikes as well. This is
Claudia Jongereis.
Claudia Jongerius, indeed.
Well, yeah.
You couldn't have known that.
I could have done. I could have learned a bit more.
Okay. A very high gear here for Lizzie Bennett.
Yeah, she's pushing an absolute monster gear there. She also looks slightly uncomfortable on the bike, slightly lopsided there.
It looks very uncomfortable to watch. If we look at the start field here, 2 years ago, because last year the race was cancelled due to COVID, the race was won by Lisa Brennauer. Very exciting race we saw. Second place for Demi Vollering, third place for Lizzie Banks. Neither of these riders are here, unfortunately. Other winners in recent years, Letizia Paternoster in the prologue, but I'm looking at the GC. That is the one that I wanted to show you. Paternoster, Magirus, of course, winning her home race, which was quite a battle. This is a good time for somebody on a normal bike, 3:33. So well done for Lizzie Bennett. I remember 2017 that it was a very exciting battle for the bonus seconds, and we will see that.
This race is all about bonus seconds, really. You have to get close to the top spot in the prologue and then manage your bonus seconds, whether that be on intermediate sprints, which there are, I don't think there are any intermediate time bonuses during the race in the 2 road stages, but you have to try and get in the top 3 of each of the road stages in order to take advantage of the 10, 6 and 4 that are on the line in the road stages, but not today.
Sophie van Rooyen, a young rider for the Parkhotel Valkenburg, also an accomplished cyclocross rider. She's very versatile, and she's also low in that 3:30s region. We have some technical issues here on site. Like I said already on Twitter, we had a power outage basically a minute before we were due live, and that has caused some problems also with the motorbikes on the course. So hopefully we will bring you some more images of the riders on the course. But for now, we have the finish cam, and we're waiting for the riders to come in. 2019, we basically had the same stages as we have this year. They choose the same finish places, Garnig and Steinfort. Demi Vollering, like you said, Owen, won that prologue 2 years ago. The stage in Steinfort, remember that, in the pouring rain, was won by Marta Lach, the Polish rider, and the last stage by Lisa Brennauer, and that's how she cemented the overall win. These are not the women from Jumbo-Visma, although they look a bit similar, but this is the French team of Charente, Stade Rochelet, Charente-Maritime being a department in France. A lot of these races, a lot of these teams, amateur teams, are linked to the regions in France, and this is one of them. France has some women's teams, and of course with the Tour de France looming on the horizon next year, a proper Tour de France that is, other teams are showing interest to becoming a professional team, including, for example, Cofidis and their management director or manager of HR. He said, well, we want our sponsorship to reflect our company. This is, of course, a very interesting rider, and if you followed this race in the past, you know the heartbreaking moment when Rianne Marcus was caught only a few hundred meters before the finish line.
She also did very well last year. In general, I think she was 3rd on the GC overall, was she, last year? So she could go really well. She also has another year of development in her, so she will be stronger, more canny, and she will be the team leader here, I would imagine. She's got a really good chance of doing well.
It's a mixed team here, led by Lieselotte Delcroix, Nancy van der Burg, Carlijn Swinkels, Rianne Marcus, Julie van der Velde, Anoushka Koster, and Romy Kasper, whom we have already seen. Last rider of the start ramp here in Luxembourg is going to be 17 minutes past 7 local time, and that is Maria Giulia Convalonieri. We have some interesting riders in the last batch of riders, of course, with Magirus, who's won this race before. Backstedt, Eleanor Backstedt, finally back after that long injury. This could be a good race for her as well, to show her talent. Of course, she was racing in a supportive role in the few races that she's done so far. But this could be interesting for her to show the huge talent, of course, that she has.
Yeah, but she's certainly been given the #1 bib in her team. She's number 21 for Trek Segafredo. So it would be good to see her taking a lead here. Though she does have some considerable firepower alongside her in the team with 2016 world road champion, that is, Amelia Didriksen, Loretta Hansen, who we've already seen, and we've already seen Taylor Wiles. Ruth Winder is also here, and I think Ruth Winder is possibly responsible for one of the most memorable moments of the season so far at Brabantse, yeah, where Demi Vollering thought she'd won it, and it seems that Ruth Winder won it by the casing of her tubular tyre, I imagine.
Young Neve Bradbury here for the Canyon SRAM team. The rider who came through the Swift Academy, just like Jay Vine did for the men, and he came second in the Tour of Turkey. So it's a good stepping stone. Neve Bradbury, of course, very compact rider, very small rider, you can also say. And finally, we have some great images back here of the prologue, and it's a very technical ride. She's, of course, steering on a time trial bike. It takes a little bit of effort, and this is interesting what the time is going to be. Oh, that can't be right.
I think that she's really done 4:20. We'll get some...
I hope at least it's 3:20.
Yeah.
That they have the timing wrong.
And the timing's come through to us here. 3:19.2 for Rayana Marcus. So she's within striking distance, but...
Yeah, she's fifth at the moment.
But
it's okay.
4 seconds, if they come to bunch sprints, it's going to be difficult for her to overhaul that.
Canyon SRAM are here with Elise Chabet, the Swiss national champion, Ella Harris, Neve Bradbury, Ludwig, Omer Shapira, and I'm missing one.
Chabet, Ella Harris, Michaela Harvey, Hannah Ludwig, Omer Shapira, and Neve Bradbury.
Next rider across the line of the Lift cycling team is Jaskulska, the Polish rider, and we're back with Bradbury.
Canyon SRAM are quite interesting here. They are the only team on the start list who don't have a rider who has ridden this race before. Every other team have some experience of Festival Elsy Jacobs on their lineup, but not Canyon SRAM, which is quite interesting, especially as they've come so close to winning GC in the past.
You already mentioned the strength of Team DSM, of course, but also Trek Segafredo have a pretty strong team here. Of course, with 8 of the 8 of the 9 World Tour teams, the organisers are pretty happy. Neve Bradbury, she's also going to finish around 3:30. A lot of riders finish around that 3:30 margin.
Which shows just how good the current leading time of Leah Kirschman is at 3:15. 15 seconds over 2.2 kilometres is a huge margin. And of course, Kirschman can sprint. She can sprint. She's at home, shoulders on against the opposition in a bunch sprint. She could quite easily win the GC here if she can score some bonus seconds over the next couple of days.
The top 5 at the moment is, as you might expect, quite a Dutch affair. But the leader is still the Canadian national champion, Lea Kirchmann, with 3:15. Carlijn Swinkels in second place, only a few hundredths of a second behind Lea Kirchmann. In third place, Talita de Jong, one of the earliest starters, second off the ramp she was. Anoushka Koster in fourth place, and Ruth Winder in fifth place at the moment. So there hasn't been any changes in that top 10. or top 5, and that won't change with Alessia Patuelli. Her time 3:41. Here we have the rider from Team Movistar with number 31, the French woman Aude Bianic. And this is one of the longest stretches on the road where you can actually be in that time trial position, be aero. And contrary to most of the road surfaces here in Luxembourg, because I brought my bike and I will be out riding tomorrow morning, the road surfaces in Luxembourg are fantastic.
Excellent, yeah.
But, well, not this stretch of bike path, unfortunately.
Bianic is she's a former French time trial champion, I believe, certainly road champion, and she is the kind of powerful rider who could also go very well here. In fact, Movistar have brought a pretty strong lineup as well. They have a strong squad, but with Bianic, Guariski, who we've already seen, Emma Norsgaard, Emma Jorgensen, depending on how you which surname you're using, is a very interesting rider.
Diederiksen, of course, has the explosiveness to do a time trial. She looks very aero, of course, is the national champion of her country. Fantastic young generation they have in Denmark with Diederiksen, with Norsgaard, and also with Cecilia Uttrup-Ludwig.
Yeah.
Very interesting young generation, and they are all 3 of them are, well, world best at the moment. That was a little bit of a wobbly turn by Diederiksen.
Yeah, it was quite a wobbly little turn there. Not saying I'd do any better, of course, but yeah, she did take that quite slow, and then she's got to get on top of that massive gear again to get herself back up to speed, back into that aero position.
Next rider across the finish line, Maëlle Grosse Tête, which translates as big head grosse tête. A rider who's been doing a lot of the Spring Classics and has a fantastic Twitter feed if you speak French.
And another one in the 3:30 region, 3:30.94 for Grosse Tête.
We stay with Diederiksen, who of course has a very important focus this year, and that is the Olympic Games. She's going to ride the Madison there with
Julie Lett.
With Julie Lett, of course. They have been European champion together. And Amelie Diederiksen will, of course, also be riding the Omnium, that fantastic 4-event race on the Olympic track in Tokyo, taking it up against, amongst others, world champion Kirsten Wild.
And Julie Lett, her Madison teammate, is here representing Ceratizit WNT Pro Cycling as well.
And that is also the main sponsor of this race, officially called the Ceratizit Festival S. Jacobs. Ceratizit have a large plant here in Luxembourg, so the race is important for the team, who are here with Asensio, Convalonieri, Hammes, Lett, Teutenberg and Fitieli. So no Brennauer, no Kirsten Wild, unfortunately, but a team that should go on the attack. They will race this race aggressively, no doubt, with the sponsor being also the main sponsor of this race. And smaller organizations like this really depend on sponsors like Ceratizit, and also, of course, the sponsors of the different jerseys.
You talk of Brennauer and Wild, though. I don't think we'll see them before the Olympics, because they'll both be on the track as well, won't they? Brennauer with Lisa Klein, another former podium finisher of this race. Here we go, 3:29 for Diederiksen.
That is 10 seconds slower than the rider in place number 5, Ruth Winder. So not a really great time by Diederiksen. But her focus this season will be different, of course, because of the Olympic Games. Kelly van der Steen of the Bingle Casino Chevalmere team. Bingle being a casino and Chevalmere being swimming pools. Did you know that?
Chevalmere swimming pool.
Swimming pools.
Oh, I didn't know that, no. I'll tell you who's coming up soon. Will be Lonneke Unneker. Now there's an interesting rider.
The winner of the Healthy Aging Tour. There she is.
Here she comes. She's a super strong young woman. She really, really is. Let's have a look. No,
There is Kelly van der Steen just off the ramp and then straight into that hill. The time of Lonneke Uneken.
is 3:17.67.
That takes her into the top 10, the rider for SD Works. Fantastic final stage we saw on the Vanberg in the Healthy Aging Tour. It was very cold, it was rainy, and she kind of just accidentally rode away from the bunch. And it seemed like the peloton was not really aware that she was taking such a big gap. And then thanks to mostly Loretta Hansen, Ellen van Dijk managed to get back enough to Lonneke Uneken to secure her fourth final win in that race. Ellen van Dijk coming back soon, hopefully, after her COVID-19 infection.
Yes, let's hope so. She's a hugely powerful rider for the Trek Segafredo team, and one of the strongest and most experienced riders in the entire peloton, and also a lovely person to speak to. Fiacelli just crossing the line there, 3:34, and this is Emily Moberg, Norwegian rider.
Absolutely one of the more experienced riders on the Drops Le Col team, who have been doing great and are fantastic ambassadors for the sport. I just saw a great article by Steve O'Shea about a lot of things going on outside of cycling. Careers, dual careers are important to the Drops Le Col team, to Bob Farney, but also the team very open about everything, about something that every woman in this peloton copes with, and that is the menstrual cycle. And you don't see very often that in interviews teams are open about that, riders are open about that. But to me, as a woman, those things are very interesting to read because, of course, we all deal with that, and it does affect your athletic ability. So good for Steve O'Shea to write that on Velo News and go check it out.
Of course, it's not something I can really comment on,
No,
not having experienced it.
You shouldn't. This is the Canadian rider, Magdalene Valliere. She rides for the World Cycling Centre and used to be based in Sittard in the south of the Netherlands. Back with the rider for Drops Le Col.
It's an interesting conversation as to whether you're high cadence or low cadence. Crikey, she threw the bike into that last corner there. But the high cadence or low cadence thing in time trialling is an interesting argument. I think you probably get faster if you are a lower cadence with higher power. But she's a sprinter, isn't she? Essentially, Emilia Moberg, and so she's going to ride in her own style.
Coming across the line is Kelly van der Steen of the Bingle Casino Cheval Maritime, another rider in the low 3:30s.
And she looked like she'd left it all out on the road there. She absolutely, like she'd emptied herself.
Well, these race days can be incredibly boring because it's waiting, warming up, waiting, going to the start, waiting, having your bike check, waiting some more, and then have a 3.5 minute effort. And that's it. That's what you plan to do the entire day. So most of the riders who are not specialists in the prologue just prefer a road stage. But most of the riders went for a little spin this morning because most of the teams arrived here yesterday already, despite being the prologue starting at 5:30 at night.
I don't know whether riders find this kind of thing enjoyable because it's just absolute pain for the entire race for a prologue. There is no, and the time trial in general, there is no rest. There is no recovery. It's just 100% effort for the entire 2.2 kilometers. 3:32 for Emily Moberg.
Spela Ken, a rider from Slovenia on the Massi Tactic women's team, a team from Spain. And this is the jersey that I was talking about. This could be SD Works.
I think that's a gorgeous coloured jersey, I really do.
But it's exactly the same.
If any of you Brits out there remember the rhubarb and custard sweets as a child, I mean, that's what it reminds me of. The body, anyway.
I'm just wondering where this is going. I thought you were just starting your Beryl Burton rhubarb story.
Oh, you can't give it away.
It's going to be tomorrow.
Yes.
The Beryl Burton rhubarb story is going to be tomorrow. Julia van Bokhoven, she excelled in the Ardennes races. In the Amstel Gold race, she was one of the few riders to finish and one of the youngest riders to finish the race, actually. Great ride by her, also there in the low 330s. This team is the Andy Schleck Immo Losch team. Andy Schleck has a really big bike shop here in Luxembourg, beautiful bike shop, and he sponsors a women's team and is very passionate about it. His brother, since this week, is part of the Luxembourg Cycling Federation.
Oh.
Yep. And they are, well, still very active in cycling. Andy Schleck is race director in the EuropeTour de Luxembourg, the men's race in September. And on GCN Plus, you can see a fantastic interview with Andy Schleck and Daniel Lloyd. So
we just saw Chiara Consoni roll down the ramp, and one of my favourite riders, one of my favourite interviews ever, was speaking to her after she won the final stage of the 2019 Bulls Ladies Tour. She was just so happy. She couldn't fail to make everyone around her happy as well. It was just a wonderful experience to interview someone who's so happy.
I'm going to give you the top 10 at the moment. Still leading Lea Kirchmann. In second place, Karin Swinkels. In third, Talita de Jong. Lonneke Uneken now in fourth place. She has entered that top 5. Anouska Koster is in 5th. Ruth Winder in 6th. Rianne Marcus in 7th. Emma Norsgaard in 8th. Clara Copponi, we haven't seen her, the French rider, but she's 9th at the moment. And Barbara Guarici is currently in 10th place. Everything still very close together. Guarici in 10th place with a time of 3:20. So that's only 5 seconds behind the number 1 at the moment, Lea Kirchmann. But Lea Kirchmann was one of the first riders to start. So she has been in the hot seat for a while now, almost over an hour, actually. Her start time was 5:42. Arrival here of the young Norwegian rider, Hofstad. And then we quickly move on to Chiara Consoni, who I think will win a stage here. It's quite a bold prediction, but yeah, she won the Valencia one. Of course, the field there was of a lower quality than we have here, but she is that kind of rider that you don't notice, and all of a sudden she's there.
She also won the Ronde de Mouscron as well, so she's two wins to her credit so far this year.
So she's absolutely one of the riders to look out for. Tomorrow we have, as Owen told me, the longest stage ever here in Festival Elsy Jacobs. 125 kilometers from Steinfort to Steinfort with 4 categorized climbs. And on Sunday, a very exciting stage in Garnisch with a, well, pesky climb in the local lap.
Yeah.
Fantastic courses. Both courses really are open to very aggressive racing, and I think we're going to see that both days.
You talk of Consoni here winning a stage. It's certainly not beyond the bounds of possibility. That the team is so well drilled. They have such a fantastic lead out. And Consoni is the kind of woman that can finish it off, as is, of course, Elisa Balsamo. I think if you cast your minds back to the Ceratizit Challenge in Madrid last September, sorry, October.
November.
What was last year? I can't remember.
It was November,
was it? And the way they just dominated what was Team Sunweb then on the final lap was absolutely incredible. And that's how they Balsamo won the stage, because they just have such a fantastic lead out.
The time for Chiara Consoni, 3:27, and you could already see it in the way she crossed the finish line that she didn't go all in. She didn't go back to that time trial position. This is Jursina, a rider from the Ale BTC Ljubljana team, a rider from Russia on the time trial bike, the Cipollini bikes. And legend has it that Mr. Cipollini himself sometimes is training with these girls and still wants to win every sprint against Marta Bastianelli. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I wonder.
This is Ella Harris, the rider from New Zealand, on her way for her 2.2-kilometre prologue.
I wonder if his ego would allow him to lose to a current professional.
No, he will not until he is 69 at least, or 72 possibly.
Julie van der Velde just crossed the line in 3:25.
That's a good time.
Yep, an interesting rider as well.
If we look at the start list now, we still have Lorena Wiebes. She is about to start in a minute from now. Also interesting to watch out for Fisher Black, of course, Julie Lett, Misha Bredewold, a young Dutch talent who especially likes these kind of races to show herself. And I think we will see her later this weekend. Séverine Hérault is a former world champion. Also, we are looking out for Corin Rivera, for Eleanor Bakstedt, Majurus, and the last rider off the ramp is going to be Convalonieri. And this is Lorena Wiebes, still bearing the scars on her knee from that horrible crash in the Healthy Aging Tour. This is not Marie Lennet, but this is the rider from DSM.
She was largely saved by her shorts, wasn't she?
The DSM Dyneema shorts.
Yeah, they have these high-tech shorts that prevent a lot of road rash, and she got away with that because it was a terrible, terrible crash. You may recall it was on the motor racing circuit right up in the northeast of the Netherlands, Assen. And she went down hard, didn't she? Really, really hard.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, but she's a super strong rider, and we could quite happily see her win the GC here. If you might have seen the guy just checking his watch there.
I think it was Jorge Sanz, wasn't it?
It was Jorge Sanz, yeah, from Movistar, yeah.
I wasn't sure, but I thought I recognised him. Of course, he's here with a team as well, without Annemiek van Vleuten, but with Bojanik, Guarici, Norsgaard, Alba, Teruel, Lourdes, Oyarbide, and Leah Thomas. So that is a strong team as well.
Yeah, I think we'll see Van Vleuten in the Spanish stage races that are coming up.
Absolutely.
And then it'll be all in for the Olympics. We'll see her at the Giro and the Olympics.
Well, she's won 2 big races this spring.
Certainly has.
Netting the first classic, the first monument for Movistar in 42 years. So that was pretty impressive by her. The first Tour of Flanders in 42 years.
I was having an interesting conversation with someone on Twitter, and they were saying how it was always the same women that won. And then I asked them to check the results for the 8, as it was then, World Tour races, and we had 7 different winners.
It's been a fantastic spring.
It has been a fantastic spring. And whilst it may be the same group of women that are contesting the finish, it's not the same women that are taking the win, and that's absolutely fantastic for the sport.
The times of Marianne Vos winning 8 of the 10 World Tour races are over, although she won 2, so that's still a pretty good score in the current times.
It was interesting to see how SD Works beat her up, didn't they, on the final climb at Liège last week.
Well, she hung on La Rochefoucauld, but there was this little climb after that did her in, and it was basically Anna van der Breggen killing Marianne Vos. So yeah, that happens when you're on.
It was on that secondary climb.
It was
that Amanda Spratt attacked in, I think, 18, and.
Look at this. If this is correct,
Wowzers.
we might have a new best time. Let's wait for the confirmation, but Lorena Wiebes was looking super fast. We are waiting for the confirmation of Lorena Wiebes' time. There it is. It is a new best time.
3:12.3.
New best time for Lorena Wiebes, which is hugely important if she wants to win this race. Of course, she has a mighty sprint, and there's 10 bonus seconds every time you cross the finish line in first place. So this is absolutely huge for Lorena Wiebes. 3:12, beating the best time of her teammate at the moment, Lea Kirchmann. 3 seconds faster than the Canadian champion. What a fantastic ride by Lorena Wiebes.
Yeah.
Moving on to another big Dutch talent, the former junior cyclocross world champion, Shirin van Anrooy. Let's do a little slow-mo there of that finish of Lorena Wiebes. And That was spectacular.
DSM keeping it in the family as well, of course, because Kirschman had the lead for so long, but now her teammate has the lead.
Shirin van Androoy, who had a pretty rough year, of course, a crash in one of the cyclocross races. I think it was all the way back in November, which, well, caused quite a serious injury, hampering also her preparation for the road season. But this is a good race for her as well. The two youngsters on the Trek Segafredo team, both here with both Eleanor Bakstedt and Shirin van Androoy. So it will be interesting to see what they can do and grab the opportunities that they are given.
Only 19.
Another interesting rider just crossed the finish line with a pretty good time, just outside of the top 10. Marie Lenay of the FDJ Nouvelle-Aquitaine Futuroscope team, also a team named after a region, Nouvelle-Aquitaine, just like the Stade Rochelet Charente Maritime team. Maritime team. Oh, never mind. Next across the line for Team Movistar.
That was Lourdes Oabide,
the former national champion on the road. And we're back with Shirin van Androoy. She should be absolutely fantastic in taking those corners, of course, with her cyclocross prowess. She just registered for a university education. She's going to do psychology next year at the University of Maastricht. So she is not only fast on the bike, but also very intelligent. Next rider off the ramp of the
World Cycling Centre.
World Cycling Centre, Anastasia Kolesava, a rider from Belarus. Of course, we have one big name from Belarus, and that is Alena Amirusic. And this is a younger compatriot of the Canyon SRAM rider. Back here with Shirin van Androoy attacking that finish line.
This will be a good time. Oh, perhaps not.
The time of Shirin van Androoy, 3:22, 17th place for her. This is one of the oldest riders in the peloton, Nathalie van Gogh.
The oldest rider in the race.
But still super strong, well into her 40s. An inspiration, Nathalie van Gogh. Also has a full-time job, or almost full-time job, working in IT. And she was always there at the front of the race, one of the most important, or if not the most important rider, next to Talita de Jong on this team that was formed really haphazardly at the end of the season, the Bingle Casino Chevalmere team. So they have an interesting collection of riders from all over the place, including Puk Mone, the infamous Instagram influencer, who, well, hasn't been doing a lot of riding just yet, but hopefully for her, she will find the passion back on the bike. And, well, focuses on races where the pressure isn't that high. Straight from the starting ramp, we face this ramp. So you do have to do a proper warm-up, that's for sure.
You certainly do. Yeah, that's a big effort up that climb. I mean, and television always flattens any incline, if you like, but you can see just from those pictures you've just seen just how steep that is. And it's a brute to start off a race with, straight into that.
It's a reminder that the best time at the moment is Lorena Wiebes, 3:12. 3 seconds behind her is Lea Kirchmann, also 3 seconds behind her Carlijn Swinkels. 4 seconds behind Lorena Wiebes in 4th place is Talita de Jong, and currently in 5th place, also 4 seconds behind Lorena Wiebes, is Lonneke Uneken. Julie Letts.
It just looks like some gear problems there for Julie as she was coming along the straight there. Just looks like she was spinning and then grinding her legs, and I wonder if she had some issues there. And they also had an Italian flag next to her name, and she's Danish.
Yeah, my start list is all over the place. I have Alba Bianic, for example, and an Esme Kirchmann on the start list, Hannah Chabet. So my start list is a bit...
In the background, you can just see Christine Mejerus, the local heroine, the local hero, just warming up there on the rollers, looking down, getting her focus ready.
And Misha Bredewald of the starting ramp. I had the privilege to do an interview with both her and her boyfriend Edo Maas. Misha Bredewald in her last year as a junior was severely injured by a truck and had a, well, almost year-long rehab. I'm just confused with the Dutch word, which is revalidatie, rehab. But she's back on the level, on the promising level that she had as a junior. And, well, fate has it that her boyfriend was hit by a car in the Il Lombardia for the under-23 riders, Edo Maas, and is paralyzed from the waist down and was in the exact same rehabilitation center as she was a year prior. They make a very interesting couple, very accomplished artist as well, Edo Maas. Check out his Instagram. He's at the Academy of Arts at the moment in Rotterdam. Going into the finish straight there is that finish arch with Nathalie van Gogh.
46 years old. Just started to rock and roll on the bike there. Just finding it difficult to keep the keep it going.
I think this is lactate acid.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Everywhere.
Legs hurting, head hurting, lungs hurting, toenails hurting, everything hurting when you get to that level.
Toenails hurting. That's the first time ever I heard that one.
Heroes.
Yes, Séverine Hérault of the Stade Rochelet team. It's a smaller French team, but they're, well, usually invited here. They were in the past years.
Ex-French time trial champion.
Exactly. She is. She's good, but just like many young riders, it's always hard to make that step up, to be noticed by the bigger teams. But with new teams coming up in France, left and right, she'll probably have a ride next year.
I'm sure she will have a ride. It's a chicken and egg thing. If you can't afford to train full time, how do you reach the level of the women who can afford to train full time?
Well, it was one of the interesting things that Kristen Faulkner told me, one of the revelations, of course, of the spring season, coming from venture capital, and she then now is a full-time pro cyclist. She said it's not only about training and resting, but also getting to know the sport.
Of course, yeah.
Learning the sport, the history, your rivals, watching back races, doing analysis. That is also part of being a pro cyclist. But most importantly, being paid for what you do enables you to rest when you have to and not work a full-time or 4 days or 3 days a week job next to it. And resting is half of your job, actually.
Yeah, I don't know how people just find the hours to work full-time and to train sufficiently to compete in top-level races.
Time by Anna Christian, 3:35 for the Drops the Call team, 68th place at the moment. We have many riders between the 3:30 and 3:40 mark. 3:32 also for Misha Bredewald. Just crossed the finish line. Of course, we're all anxiously waiting. Final few hundred meters there for Séverine Hérault.
She's at the massive disadvantage with a road bike as well.
But still pretty solid
That's
time.
a decent time.
On a road bike.
It'd be interesting if they had, like they do in the UK, they have time trials for non-aero.
Yeah. Just have the two. 3:30, getting her a 38th place at the moment for the rider from France. Melang is a rider from Estonia, riding for the Annie Schleck team, also on a road bike. Next rider of the ramp is Nancy van den Burg for the Jumbo-Visma team. of course, had a fantastic spring with Marianne Vos being back to her old days, I should say. That sprint in Gent-Wevelgem was one of the highlights of the spring season.
She's been, I think, probably a couple of years. We will never see Marianne Vos as dominant as she was, mainly because the level of the peloton is that much higher, and there are more women that can compete for that very reason, for the fact that, you know, there are more women who are training full time. So we will never see the dominance of her winning the Giro Rosa and races like that. But it is great to see someone so accomplished back at the top of the sport, and she, as I say, she's not going to be as dominant as she was, but she is still at the top of the sport.
I think that's actually a good thing.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
But my point is that it's a good thing that not one rider wins every imaginable race.
No one wants to watch a sport where they know the result.
And we're going to see that more and more in women's racing, that riders are going to specialize in certain races. I had this discussion with Ashley Molman-Passio for the Run Up documentary, and she said there was the first time in years that I didn't do the Flanders Classics, the Flemish Classics, but the team manager, Denny Stam, said you should focus on the Ardennes, and well, unfortunately for her, she crashed twice in Flesch, which is her favorite race. But it shows that teams are also specializing and bringing in new riders and not having the same riders do everything from Omloop to Liège.
And we see some incredibly promising climbing talent coming through, the likes of Niamh Fisher-Black or Michaela Harvey, the two New Zealanders, who are absolutely fabulous climbers. And the young British rider, Scottish rider, I'm sure she'd prefer me to say she was Scottish than just British, Anna Shackley.
I had the same discussion with Amelia Sharp, and she always wants us to put a flag of the Isle of Man before her name.
Yeah.
Very proud Isle of Man rider. Sylvia Persico, good time for her, 3:24.
That's Nancy van den Berg coming. I think it's a right here, and then she's just got one turn to do, hasn't she?
We are with the last riders almost starting is Tatiana Guderzo for the Ale BTC Ljubljana team. Then we have Corin Rivera, a former Tour of Flanders winner, Eugenie Duval, Alba Teruel, Eleanor Bäckstedt, Christine Majorus, and Maria Giulia Convalonieri is the last rider to start for the Ceratizit WNT Pro Cycling team. And they have, of course, the numbers ranking from 1 to 6 because they won this race 2 years ago with Lisa Brennauer.
Van den Berg looks strong.
I wonder what's that under her time trial suit.
Yeah.
Whether that's one of those Super Sapiens things.
On her arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will ask Lieselot tomorrow.
A heat monitor or something
Yeah,
like that, yeah.
These Super Sapiens is a new brand, and they have these round discs on the arm, and they monitor all sorts of things. And I think that's one of the things that she's wearing there. Tatiana Guderzo, she's been around, well, basically
quite a long
forever.
time. Yeah. 2009 Road World Champion. I think it was 2019. 2009 rather. It certainly wasn't 19.
Probably Marianne Vos in second place.
Yes.
Most likely.
Yeah, that was they were.
She had some issues with
days,
Italian riders back in the days at the World Championships.
Giorgio Bronzini.
Exactly. Guderzo still enjoying her craft. Nancy van der Burg just crossed the finish line in 3:25.
Yes, Marianne Vos was second. Tatiana Guderzo was in Mendrisio. I think Cadel Evans won the men's race that year.
I know it rained.
And yes, it did, yeah. Guderzo won with Vos leading home 19 seconds behind Naomi Cantele and Kristen Armstrong.
Yeah, if you look at the top 10 of that year, we have two riders still active, and that is Guderzo and Marianne Vos, so they've been around forever. Corin Rivera, her team is doing absolutely splendidly at the moment with 1 and 2. Lorena Wiebes leading.
On a road bike.
On a road bike, indeed. So that will mean that she either doesn't have a time trial bike yet,
or it's had a mechanical of some sort. She doesn't seem to be entirely happy with her machine. She keeps sort of looking down. Oh, a little flick there, back wheel just hit the grass on the edge of the road.
Interesting to know what is going on here with Corin Rivera and why she doesn't have a time trial bike. I'm pretty sure DSM brought their big truck and they could have thrown a time trial bike in, but maybe Scott doesn't have time trial bikes in size super mini.
Yeah, because she's quite diminutive, I think is a nice way of putting it. She's not a big woman, but she's incredibly powerful. I'd love to see her back winning races again. And there's a lot of body movement with her, though, there on the bike. She wasn't steady, and if you look at the top time trialists, when they're in that aero position on the bar extensions, they are rock steady, absolutely, completely steady.
Here is Alba Teruel on a Canyon time trial bike. Of course, they have time trial bikes in size very petite.
Yes.
They have some small riders there on both the men's and women's teams, I should say. And this is hugely disadvantage for Corin Rivera. Of course, she has a disc wheel, but yeah, of course, she's not going to beat Wiebes or Kirchmann. The top five is still Wiebes leading ahead of Kirchmann, Swinkels, De Jong and Uneken. That is the top five. It hasn't changed for a while, and we are looking out for, well, mostly Christine Magirus.
Yes. With Guderzo stopping the clock in 3:29.07. I wouldn't say that this is a bad time, though, from Corin Rivera.
Now imagine what she could have
what
done.
she could have done on a TT bike, yeah.
Well, that is what ifs, and they don't buy you anything. Onto the finish straight there with Corin Rivera. We don't have any wind. I'm looking at a tree here. There's hardly any movement going on.
Someone's giving her a shout. Oh my, that's a good time for a road bike. 3:22.
I'm getting some insight from my lovely colleague Magnus Backstedt. He says it's a technical circuit where some riders prefer a road bike, and therefore she has chosen a road bike. So it was a choice, is what Magnus thinks. And well, if it comes to time trials, Magnus knows his stuff. Yes. I can tell you that.
Yeah, he runs a bike fitting company, doesn't he? And he knows what aero is and how to get the best.
Oh, we did a time trial the other day on GCN Plus, and I could just ask him one question and he would talk for half an hour. So it was quite an easy day for me out.
Christine Magirus, the local hero, wearing her national champion's skin suit. She's done every edition of the Elsy Jacobs races since 2008, having won it in 2017.
She also has been second in 2018, just coming up a few seconds short of winning that. Yes. It was a heartbreaking moment for her, because of course she really wants to win her home race, and she's looking very aero here. Fantastic athletic rider, of course, so good in basically every discipline. There is a new rider on the block here in Luxembourg, and unfortunately she's not starting, and that's Claire Faber, a very young rider who unfortunately got hit by a car 2 days ago. She has several broken ribs, she has a broken jaw, a broken collarbone, and she had a 10-hour surgery today here in a Luxembourg hospital. Devastating blow for her, of course, crashing just ahead of her home race, but even more facing a very long rehabilitation period.
Thoughts certainly with Claire Faber. She was, I think she was off the front in Liège-Bastogne-Liège the other day, wasn't she? Which is a race just up the road, really. It's not that far away. What, 100k maybe?
This is the moment where you can benefit from their aero position, and like Magnus Backstedt says, that there just aren't a lot of places where you can actually benefit from that position. But she will make the most of it on the time trial bike here.
Been unwell, though, she said. After she finished the classics, the Cobble Classics, the Northern Classics, she had a period, she was due a period of rest, but then was unwell. So she's just coming back on. So let's just see how she goes today.
Alba Teruel crossed the finish line in 3:28, which is a professional 35th place for the Spanish rider of Team Movistar. Last rider on the course is Maria Giulia Convalonieri, and here is Eleanor Beckstedt. And that is a good time for her. Of course, she's not going to win this race, but this is very important experience for her as well. Also in that 3:30, just like, well, almost the entire peloton today. 3:31 for Eleanor Beckstedt. Meaning that we have two riders left. This rider, Christine Majerus, one more corner for her to go there at the Brown House to the right, and then Convalonieri. Personally, I'm not sure if Majerus can actually beat Lorena Wiebes. That time is super fast.
Wow, did you see the way she kicked that back wheel out then for the turn? Convalonieri's done very well here in the past. I mean, she's not won it, but she's done very well. She's a consistent performer in this race. Perhaps not as consistent as Majerus in the last few years. Here she is.
No, she's not going to win this race, but she's going to be there in the top 10, 3:19 for Christine Majerus, and that means that we have one rider left to cross the finish line, and that is Convalonieri. Christine Majerus has a provisional 8th place, so she's going to be in the top 10.
She'll be pleased with that.
It is a good starting point to go hunt for those bonus seconds, both on the course and at the finish line, which is very interesting because Majerus will absolutely go for that one. So do expect some excellent racing this weekend here.
Or will they go for Uneken, who's above her in GC, I believe, isn't she?
Just a few seconds at the moment, yes.
They've both had wins. I think they've had 8 of their riders win this season. Here we go. Convalonieri into the final straight.
Time corrected for Majerus to 3:18, and this is the last rider across the finish line. Her time is going to be 3:25, meaning that Lorena Wiebes wins the prologue here in Festival Elsy Jacobs, her second win of the season. Lorena Wiebes wins the prologue of the Ceratizit Festival Elsy Jacobs with a time of 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Lea Kirchmann 3 seconds slower in second place, and also 3 seconds slower Caroline Swinkels in third place. Talita de Jong in fourth, Lonneke Uneken in fifth, and Anoushka Koster in sixth place. And if we have a top 10, we will of course give you that, but we're also working without any live timing like everybody at home. 5 seconds slower or 6 seconds slower than Lorena Wiebes is going to be quite the challenge for Christine Majerus, because of course Wiebes is the strongest sprinter, and this is looking very promising for Wiebes. Don't miss tomorrow, and with the start of the Tour de Romandie being a few hours earlier than anticipated, it means that you can also watch this race live. We are going to be back tomorrow at 3:30 Central European Time on the channel you are watching now. So don't miss that with this rider in the yellow jersey, Lorena Wiebes.
It'll be very difficult for anyone to beat her as long as the team, and there's no reason why they wouldn't, work well together and keep focused. Wiebes is looking very strong for this. I can't see her not finishing. I can't see her finishing outside the top 3 in any of the sprints. But then, of course, you never know, do you?
We have the top 10 of the race with Wiebes winning ahead of Kirchmann, Swinkels, Talita de Jong, Lonneke Uneken, Anoushka Koster, Ruth Winder in 7th place, Christine Majerus in 8th, Rianne Marcus in 9th, and Emma Norsgaard in 10th place. Then going on with 11th place, Clara Copponi, 12th, Marie Lenné, 2 riders from the FDJ Nouvelle-Aquitaine Futuroscope. 13th place for Barbara Guarischi, 14th for Labous, 15th for Amber van der Hulst, another promising young Dutch rider. Elise Chabet in 16th, Corinne Rivera in 17th place, Shana Korevaar in 18th, Shirin van Anrooy in 19th, and in 20th place it's Elisa Balsamo. You could actually see how she was attacking that finish line, Lorena Wiebes.
A full-on sprint,
Absolutely.
essentially, right at the end, yep. Leave it all on the road, as they say. Well, she certainly did, and looking good for the remaining 2 stages. Tomorrow, of course, we have, as we said earlier, the longest stage in the history of this race, 125.1 kilometres, starting and finishing in Steinfort, which is a small village, a small town perhaps, to the west of Luxembourg City, right on the Belgian border.
We're actually going to hug the border, but not cross the border.
Yes, we don't cross it, yeah.
Because then you would have all sorts of issues in these COVID times.
We've got an opening tomorrow. We have an opening loop of 44.7 kilometres, which is different from the loop of previous years. And then after that, we've got 4 laps of 20.1 kilometres. Similar, but not the same to the 2019 edition when we had a breakaway, took the wind, didn't we? In that horrendous weather, it was cold and wet and
horrible,
incredibly miserable.
But we shouldn't complain too much because
no.
we are dry. We're not out on the road. We're just waiting for the podium. Hopefully that will happen between now and a few minutes. And otherwise, we will see you back tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. Central European Time.
Ja, we doen een keer klassement. Wat Lorena Wiebes geht die beste Zeit. 3 minuten en 12 seconden. So the winner of today is Lorena Wiebes from the team DSM. Start number 56. With the time 3 minutes and 12 seconds, the second place.
Second win of the year for Lorena Wiebes. Of course, she won the Scheldeprijs after a pretty mighty sprint, beating Emma Norsgaard to another second place. You do hope that Emma Norsgaard wins the stage here after all the second place she had this season already.
She's such an upbeat person to speak to. She's an interesting person to speak to, and I would love to see her win a race.
I had a duo interview with her and her brother. That was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
Lorena Wiebes, le vainqueur d'aujourd'hui et aussi le porteur du maillot jaune, Ceratizit.
I always think it's sad when you emerge from a press room or a commentary box and the race is all gone and it's just a street. An hour before it was an international sporting theatre, and now it's just a road somewhere. I always think it's very, very sad. Perhaps it's because I'm an old sentimental.
I will not comment on that. Lorena Wiebes, the winner of today's prologue, 22 years of age. She just turned 22 last month. Comes from a town called Meidrecht, which is pretty close to Amsterdam. I often see her on my own training rides, in a flash, naturally. This is her second win of the season after winning the bunch sprint in Scheldeprijs. And of course, with a 3-second margin on her teammate Lea Kirchmann, it's going to be incredibly difficult for the competition to beat this woman to win the overall on Sunday. But this race is always unpredictable. The weather is looking good for this weekend. It's not going to be super warm, but for now it looks like it's going to be dry. But well, good luck everybody else from taking Lorena Wiebes off the out of the yellow jersey.
And when she won the race, what was the first thing she said? Do you remember when she won Scheldeprijs?
No? Finally.
At last.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the podium ceremony is taking just a little bit too long, which means that Owen and I are just going to head off to the pizzeria and have something to eat. We'll be back at 3:30 p.m. Central European Time tomorrow afternoon for the second stage. So just don't miss that. First you can watch Romandie and then you can watch this race.